Hello friends, welcome back to 30 Minutes Book Summaries. Today, we're diving into a book that's going to completely change the way you look at fear, failure, and the life you've been avoiding. The book is The Art of Risk: What We Can Learn from the World's Leading Risk Takers by Richard Harris. And I promise you, by the end of this summary, you're going to want to do something that scares you. Let's get into it. Lesson 1. Embrace carefully managed risk. Meet Shubham. Ordinary guy, small town, same office every day, same home every evening, same weekend routine. On the surface, a perfectly fine life, but deep down, he felt lost. Like life was just happening to him. No excitement, no direction, just a quiet, comfortable monotony. Then one day, walking past a bookstore, something caught his eye. A book sitting right at the front, The Art of Risk: What We Can Learn from the World's Leading Risk Takers. He picked it up, read a few pages standing right there in the store, and before he even reached the counter, he'd already decided, this book is mine. That evening, TV off, phone on silent, he opened the first chapter. The title, Embrace Carefully Managed Risk. Shubham rolled his eyes a little. Risk management, really? That sounds like a boring corporate training session. But he kept reading, and Harris's words started pulling him in. The author said something that hit differently. Real risk takers aren't reckless. The world's best risk takers analyze every risk first. They ask, what's the worst that could happen? And what steps can I take to prevent it? That's when a memory surfaced. College days. His friend Arjun had gone bungee jumping. Shubham had said no, he was too scared. He thought Arjun was crazy. But now, reading this, he realized something. Arjun wasn't crazy. Arjun had taken a calculated risk. The bungee jumping company had safety measures in place. Arjun had checked them. He'd prepared. That wasn't recklessness. That was courage backed by planning. Shubham had been calling courage stupidity this whole time. Then Harris described a mountaineer who spent years training to climb Everest, conditioning his body, assessing every decision at every step. People saw the summit photo and called him brave, but what they didn't see was the years of calculated preparation behind that single moment. Shubham put the book down. He closed his eyes and asked himself one honest question. What's the biggest fear I've been running from? The answer came instantly. Failure. I avoid everything because I'm terrified of failing. But Harris is literally saying, don't run from failure. Analyze it. Prepare for the worst case. And then move. Right then, Shubham made a decision. He was going to take one small but meaningful risk in his life. He pulled out his diary and started writing down everything he'd always wanted to do but never did because of fear. The first thing on the list, start his own business. Become a freelance photographer. Photography had always been his passion, but every time the thought came, the questions followed. What if no clients come? What if I fail? What if I can't make money? But this time, he did something different. Under his list, he wrote 3 words, what's the worst? And then he actually answered it. 1. No clients. Solution. Start by shooting for friends and family for free. Build a portfolio. 2. Financial struggle. Solution. Keep a part-time job while starting out. 3. People will laugh. Solution. Let them. My life is mine, not theirs. For the first time, his fears weren't just floating around in his head. They were written down, named, and answered. The next morning he used his savings to buy a decent camera. His hands were slightly shaking at the checkout counter. But in his head, Harris's words were playing on repeat. Confidence comes from preparation. He went to a small garden in his city and just started shooting. Nature, kids playing, candid moments, and slowly, it clicked. This is it. This is my thing. A few weeks later, his friend's wedding photographer canceled last minute. His friend called him almost as a joke. Hey Shubham, can you take some photos? Shubham's first instinct was to say no. But then he thought, worst case, the photos aren't great and they tease me about it. Best case, I get real experience. He said yes. He showed up, he shot the entire wedding, he edited everything that night, sent it over. His friend's response? Shubham, these are incredible. You made the professional photographer look average. That night, sitting alone with his camera and his diary, Shubham understood lesson 1 for real. Taking a risk doesn't mean putting your life in danger. It means facing your fear with a plan. And that changes everything. Lesson 2. The importance of resilience. The book became Shubham's companion. Every evening a new chapter. Every chapter a new mirror. One night he turned to Lesson 2. The importance of resilience. His first reaction, I'm not sure this applies to me. I haven't faced anything that dramatic. But then he kept reading. Harris wrote, resilience isn't just for disasters, it's for everyday life. Every time you fall and get back up, that's where real strength is built. Shubham's mind went straight to a memory he'd buried. College debate competition. He'd been confident going in. But the moment he stepped on stage, his legs shook, his voice cracked, his mind went completely blank. He forgot everything. He walked off that stage humiliated, and he never went near a microphone again. I told myself I wasn't built for public speaking, but was that true, or was that just what failure sounds like when you refuse to try again? Harris shared the story of a mountaineer who failed to reach the summit. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. Every fall made him study harder, train better, adjust his strategy, until finally, he made it. Shubham wrote in his diary that night, 1. Get better at public speaking. 2. Take one new challenge every week. The very next day at the office, his boss asked who wanted to present the team update. Shubham's hand went up. Even he was surprised. His palms were sweating, his heart was pounding. But he told himself, Harris said face the fear. If I mess up today, I'll do better next time. He started speaking. His voice was soft at first, then steadier, then confident. When he finished, his boss smiled and said, Good job, Shubham. That was clear and precise. He stood there for a second, just letting it sink in. The fear in my imagination was 10 times bigger than the actual moment. Harris had described resilience as a muscle. Use it repeatedly, and it gets stronger. Shubham took that literally. When Arjun called him for a trek, Shubham's first instinct was to say no. Heights terrified him. But he remembered, comfort zones make us weak. Step out and discover your strength. He went. The trail was brutal. Steep climbs, narrow rocky paths. At one point, Shubham froze. His legs were shaking. He felt like he was going to fall. Arjun looked back at him and said simply, Don't look at the top. Just focus on your next step. One step at a time. Shubham breathed, focused down, one step, then another. When he reached the top and looked out at the view stretching for miles in every direction, he felt something leave him, some old, heavy version of himself left behind on that mountain. On the way back down, he realized resilience isn't just physical. It's deciding that the view is worth the climb, even when your legs are shaking. A few months later, a big photography competition came up. Shubham entered. He didn't win. But instead of going home and feeling sorry for himself, he did something different. He contacted the judges and asked for feedback. They told him, Your lighting and composition need work. So he worked on lighting, he worked on composition, every single day. He entered small local events, failed some, improved after each one. The lesson had become part of his DNA now. Resilience isn't just for the big moments. It's for every small Tuesday, when nothing goes right and you show up anyway. Lesson 3, the line between recklessness and courage. Rainy evening, hot chai, Shubham opened the 3rd chapter, understanding the line between recklessness and courage. Harris opened with a question that stopped Shubham cold. What in your life do you do without thinking? And what do you avoid because fear disguises itself as reason? He thought about Arjun again. Paragliding, skydiving, scuba diving. Shubham had always privately thought, Arjun is reckless, he's going to get himself killed one day. But now reading this, a different thought came. What if Arjun wasn't reckless at all? What if he was actually the courageous one, exploring his boundaries with intention? And what if I was the one using concern to cover up plain old fear? That hit hard. Shubham grabbed his diary and made 2 columns. Column 1, things I avoid because of fear. Heights, public speaking, starting my own business. Column 2, things I do without thinking. Spending money without planning. Following what everyone else is doing. He stared at the page. My life is being controlled by either fear or autopilot. I'm not taking calculated risks. I'm not being courageous. I'm just drifting. Harris told the story of a stunt pilot. Every day, this man put his life on the line. People watching from the ground called him reckless. But before every single stunt, he went through meticulous pre-flight checks, analyzed every variable, had emergency landing options already mapped out. What looked like madness from the outside was mastery on the inside. The difference between reckless and courageous isn't what you do, it's how much you understand what you're doing. The very next week, Shubham got his chance to apply this. A new high-stakes project came up at work. They needed a team lead. The role was risky. If the project failed, the whole team would take the hit. Shubham's first thought, let someone else do it. But then, is this fear talking? Or is this actually too risky? Let me actually think about it. He analyzed it. The risks were real, but manageable. With proper planning, it was doable. He took the role. He planned meticulously. He listened to every concern his team raised. He adjusted when he needed to. And when the project wrapped on time with strong results, his boss pulled him aside. The reason this worked, Shubham, you led with your head and your gut. And then Arjun called. Skydiving. You in? Shubham's heart rate spiked immediately. But this time he didn't just say yes or no impulsively. He researched the company, checked their safety record, verified every measure. When he was satisfied, he said yes. Standing at the open door of the plane, wind roaring, ground impossibly far below, his heart was going insane. He jumped anyway, and the moment he was in the air, the fear dissolved. There was nothing left except the present moment, the sky, the silence, the fall. Landing on the ground, laughing and breathless, he understood. Courage and recklessness looked the same from a distance. Up close, one has a plan, the other doesn't. Know the difference. Lesson 4. Learning from failure. The next lesson hit differently. Harris wrote, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a stepping stone toward it. If you're not failing occasionally, you're probably not challenging yourself enough. Shubham read that line 3 times. He thought about every time he'd walked away from something after one bad result. The debate competition. Years of avoiding a microphone because of one bad afternoon. He pulled out his diary and started a new kind of list. Failure log. Failure 1, debate competition. What went wrong? Didn't prepare for nerves, froze under pressure. Lesson. Preparation isn't just knowing your content, it's training your body to perform under pressure. Failure 2, first photography competition. What went wrong? Lighting and composition weren't strong enough. Lesson. Master the technical foundations before worrying about creativity. Soon after, he had a big office presentation. He'd prepared his slides carefully, but on the day, the projector malfunctioned. Half his slides didn't display correctly, his rhythm broke, his confidence wobbled. He got through it. His boss appreciated the effort, but the project didn't get immediate approval. Shubham went home frustrated. But then, the lesson. Analyze the failure. There's always something to learn. He sat with it, thought honestly. I didn't test the projector setup beforehand. I didn't have a backup plan. He wrote it down, simple note. Before every presentation, test all equipment. Always have a backup. That tiny failure taught him something no success ever could have. Harris told the story of a mountain climber who fell badly during an attempt. Injured, embarrassed, humbled. But instead of quitting, he studied what went wrong. Changed his gear, changed his strategy, and a few months later, reached the exact same summit that had beaten him before. Harris wrote, failure doesn't define you. How you respond to it does. Then Arjun invited him to a 100-kilometer cycling marathon. Shubham barely cycled. But he thought, if I fail, at least I'll know my limits. And I'll come back stronger. He entered. The route was brutal. Around the 75-kilometer mark, his legs were screaming and his body was begging him to stop. He didn't finish the race. But he completed 75 kilometers he never thought he could. Sitting at the side of the road, knees aching, he called Arjun and said, I didn't reach the finish line today, but I learned exactly what I need to build, my endurance. Next time, I'll make it. Harris's words rang in his mind. The most successful people aren't afraid to fail. They're afraid of never trying at all. A few months later, Shubham entered the photography competition again. This time, he won. And standing there holding that trophy, he knew the truth. This win was built entirely from the rubble of every previous loss. Without those failures, this moment doesn't exist. Lesson 5. the value of community and shared experience. Shubham thought he'd been doing well on his own. Then he opened lesson 5. And Harris said something so simple, it stopped him cold. No one succeeds alone. Behind every great adventurer and risk-taker is a strong community that lifts them up. Shubham looked up from the page and asked himself honestly, or have I been doing all of this alone? Harris shared the story of a rock climber who always solo climbed. One day she started climbing with a less experienced partner. And something unexpected happened. Teaching someone else made her better. Seeing the climb through fresh eyes, being forced to explain decisions she'd always made on instinct. Together they climbed a summit neither had attempted alone. Shubham felt that story in his chest. He'd been solo climbing his entire life. Every challenge at work, handled alone. Every fear, carried alone. Every failure, processed alone. I thought that made me strong, but maybe it was just making me smaller. He decided to change that. He started showing up more at his photography group, actually talking to people, listening to their techniques, asking questions he would have been too proud to ask before. The group organized an outdoor photography trip to a rural village, famous for its dramatic light and shadow. Shubham almost planned to just do his own thing once they got there. But he pushed himself to actually engage, and what he found blew him away. Every photographer had their own approach. Some were obsessed with composition. Some only shot black and white. One photographer had this whole philosophy about negative space. An experienced member pulled Shubham aside at one point and said, "Sometimes the imperfections in a photo are exactly what make it powerful. Stop chasing symmetry, chase truth." That one sentence rewired something in Shubham's creative brain. He took some of his most unconventional photos that day. Imperfect frames, unexpected angles, raw moments. They became some of his most celebrated work. Harris wrote, "A community isn't just a safety net, it's a source of inspiration and growth." At the office, a major collaborative project landed. Multiple departments working together. Shubham was part of the team. And, for the first time, instead of doing his own thing quietly, he genuinely leaned into the collaboration. He noticed that everyone brought something different. Numbers, creativity, strategy, communication. No one person had it all. But together, they had everything. When the project finished, his boss didn't just praise the work. "Shubham, the reason this ran so smoothly is the way you connected the team. That's leadership." He thought, "I couldn't have been called a leader when I was doing everything alone." On one of his weekend treks with Arjun, a brand new member joined the group, first time ever trekking. Nervous, out of breath, falling behind. Shubham and Arjun didn't leave him behind. They coached him, encouraged him, shared what they'd learned from their own early struggles. And that night, tired and happy around a small fire, Shubham realized, this is the lesson, not just receiving support, giving it, being the person for someone else that this book has been for me. Harris had written, "Shared experiences don't just create memories, they create lessons that last a lifetime." Shubham thought back to the person he used to be, confused, scared, isolated, handling everything alone because he thought that's what strength looked like. He smiled to himself. That was just loneliness with good posture. The real Shubham, the one who took calculated risks, got back up from failure, knew the difference between courage and recklessness, and actually let people in. That person had been waiting inside him all along. He just needed a book to show him the door. So friends, that was our summary of The Art of Risk by Richard Harris. Here's what the book really teaches you. Risk isn't something that happens to bold people. It's something that happens for anyone willing to plan, prepare, face their fear, and then move anyway. The 5 lessons? They're not just lessons. They're a blueprint. 1. Embrace carefully managed risk. Analyze the worst case, then act. 2. Build resilience like a muscle. Use it daily. 3. Know the difference between recklessness and courage. Courage has a plan. 4. Let failure be your mentor, not your story. You cannot go far alone. Build your community, then give back to it. Which lesson hits you the hardest? Tell me in the comments, I genuinely want to know. And if you know someone who's been playing it too safe, send them this video. It might be exactly what they need to hear today. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a summary on 30 Minutes Book Summaries.